we're going to be talking about short stories. I've written the learning target up here. It's pretty simple. The ultimate goal of what we're trying to accomplish here is that you can write a short story based on either real or imagined events using the appropriate techniques. So if everyone could take out something to take some notes with, your computer, paper, or pencil, we're going to go over some vocabulary terms and some helpful terms to get us started before we read some examples of some short stories, and then we'll kind of get into free writing our own short story. So if everyone is ready. Okay, so before we begin with anything, I wanted to go over some vocabulary terms. Some of them might be familiar, some of them might be not so familiar, but I wanted us to go over them together first. I'm gonna pass out a reference sheet that you guys can use as you're writing your short story so that you can reference it and kind of guide you throughout it, but I didn't want to give it to you yet because I don't want you guys to think that you don't need to pay attention to this because you have the sheet already. So we're going to go through this together and then we'll jump into some other exercises. So I'm going to pull up a picture of each term, and it's kind of just to get your brain working. They're guiding images. They're not really going to tell you what the term is, but hopefully it'll get you thinking a little bit, and then we're going to define the term together. So the first term is short story, obviously. I've included just a little image here, and I'd like to hear from somebody what they think a short story is. I have any volunteers? Anybody? So
it's a story, but it's not as long.
It's pretty much, yeah, you're right. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. I mean, we don't need to make it any more complicated than it is. It's a short story. So here's the definition that I have for it. I've also included some anchor words to help you guys. So they're in the front part of the definition, so narrative or a tale. A short story is a story with a fully developed theme, but significantly shorter than normal text. So basically just what you said. So it's important to remember the developed theme in the short story, but other than that, it's just like any other story you would write. Okay, the next one is theme then. So can anybody tell me what a theme is? Both of you can go, actually.
The big idea.
Yes.
The big idea.
And I was thinking about the main idea.
Okay, yeah. So both of you guys are right. I'm kind of guiding you with the picture there. The definition I have here is basically the same thing. It's the central idea and a piece of writing. The important thing to remember, like I was saying earlier, with short stories is that even though they're significantly shorter than a regular story, you still have to include the theme. There still needs to be a central idea. And that's kind of what we're going to base our whole writing around, is the theme or central idea that you're going to pick to write and create your own short story on. Okay, so sequence. I'm going to talk about this picture that I put up here for sequence because I think it's very helpful actually. So we have here a gentleman who's doing a flip, it looks like. In the beginning, he's starting kind of by standing facing this way, so that's the beginning. Here is the middle, it all flows, it looks kind of like a chain, it's working together, and then he's ending on his feet facing the other way. So basically there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and everything flows. And that is the basic idea of sequence. The definition that I have here is a flow, arrangement, a chain, a particular order where related events follow one another. So sequence is another really important aspect that we need to remember to include in our short stories, just like theme. The next term is reflection. So I want you guys to take a couple seconds to think about what reflection means to you, and then turn to a partner and kind of discuss what reflection is, or the definition of reflection, for the next 30 seconds or so.
Just thinking, pondering about stuff. That's it.
For me, it's recalling past events and trying to identify what went well, what went not so well. Yeah. Identifying causes of this.
Okay, take a couple seconds to wrap up your final thoughts on reflection. And then I'm going to pull up the definition I have for reflection, which is an idea or view, a serious thought and or consideration, pondering. Does anyone want to share what they came up with that kind of coincides with this definition?
I used the word ponder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, so it's just kind of another term or another word for pondering. Something I want to make note of about reflection, and then a couple of the other terms that I'm going to be going over are, they are not necessary like theme and sequence in your short story, but they will enhance the effectiveness of your short story, kind of grabs the reader in, it makes them a little more interested. They're just effective tools to make your short story the best that it can be. So the next term then is dialogue. Dialogue, and this picture I think is really helpful too, and I was even thinking when I pass around the vocabulary list, maybe we can write little dialogue in the little bubbles there, so it kind of guides you guys and helps you think of this term a little bit easier. So conversation discussion, once again, this is a term that doesn't need to be complicated at all. It's just a conversation between characters. It also adds to the enhancement of your short story, and this is where you see the quotations of people talking with one another in stories that you would read. Okay, the final technique that we're going to be talking about is sensory image. This is one that we're going to go deeper into as the lesson continues, because this is a really important and effective technique used in short stories. Does anybody have any idea what sensory image is? Yes.
Would it be trying to imagine something?
Yeah, basically, that's the idea. It's kind of what you're getting with this picture here, is it's kind of hitting all the senses. So the definition that I have for sensory image is it's also describing words. It's using words that appeal to these senses. I have an example up here. The fierce cold wind blew past her still body, sending shivers up her spine. So does anyone, so like kind of Alexander said, that it helps you to imagine things. So why might another reason be that an author would use sensory image in their writing? Yeah.
To give their writing more life.
Right. Exactly. You want to grab the reader's attention. You want to interest them, and this really is something that it gives the reader a visual. It helps them to picture what the author is trying to get across in their writing. So does anybody have any questions about these vocabulary terms or anything before we move on to the next part of the lesson? We're clear with everything? Okay, great. So then we're going to move on, and we're going to use these to kind of help guide us as we read through some examples of short stories, and then we can reference back to them when we're creating our own short story.